There's a little-known part of Hollywood that most people are not aware of, known as the Audience Test Preview. The recently released book, Audienceology, reveals this for the first time. Our podcast series, Don't Kill the Messenger, brings this book to life, taking a peek behind the curtain. And now, join author and entertainment research expert, Kevin Getz.
And the Academy Award goes to William Goldenberg for Argo. Applause, 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 applause. Oh, my God. You won an Academy Award.
Yes, I did.
My guest today is the one and only William Goldenberg, who is one of the great editors working today. For those of you who don't know, an editor can really make or break a movie. And editors bring a director's vision to life and turn hours of raw footage into a complete experience. You know, the film editor usually gets an assembly of the film. They select and cut the footage together, arranging that clear sequence and meaning, the unfolding of the story to achieve certain sort of emotional context and provide emotional context. And they work frame by frame to ensure that the final product really achieves the desired impact, mostly the director's vision. But really, I've seen stories and movies in my life that were really impacted by great editors. And you, Billy, are one of the greats. And I can't tell you how honored I am to have you here. I mean, we've worked together on many of your movies, and you've done over 30 movies and television programs over the years. And we went back to a movie called Alive, about that plane incident when was it a soccer team? What was
rugby team?
Yeah, rugby team went down in the Andes, and in order to survive, they had to sort of eat each other. It's a true story, sadly, but it was a great experience working with you then. And of course, you were an assistant on Arachnophobia, and I worked on that. Must have been over 30 years ago. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Tell me, Billy, what was it like hearing your name announced as the winner of the Academy Award? I mean, come on.
It was probably the most nerve-wracking thing that's ever happened to me. Aside from actually winning, I won the BAFTA that year as well. And that was even more terrifying because I'd never stood in front of that many people in my life. And public speaking not being my forte. I got up, and it was early in the awards of the BAFTAs, and I got up on stage and looked out at the London Opera House and almost fainted. You know, I mean, my heart, I could feel my heart pounding, and I could hear my voice, you know, does that little wavery thing that you do when you're nervous. And I made it through. So the Oscars, I promised myself if I won, I would not look at the audience. Like I focused on the microphone, and the audience was out of focus to me. So I wouldn't have to freak out. So I wouldn't freak out because, you know, all the most famous stars are sitting in the front row. So I didn't want to flip, you know. So.
Did you think you were going to win?
I actually thought I had a really good chance to win because I had already won the ACE Award and I won the BAFTA Award. And I won many, if not all of the, you know, critics awards from around the country. I think I actually won every critics award that year.
It was a spectacularly cut film. It was a beautiful film. I mean, beautifully directed by Ben Affleck, but also the cutting of it. I mean, it was just, you know, I remember voting for you.
Thank you.
But what was the feeling like when you heard your name? Like, is it like a culmination of, you know, it's all of our dreams to win an Academy Award. It's just, in fact, I was thinking about it yesterday when the Nobels were announced for a couple of additional folks. I was thinking, if I could win an Academy Award or a Nobel, which would I rather win? And it would be an Oscar.
Well, you know, it was an out-of-body experience for sure. I mean, when it's happening, it just seems like you're a dream. You're sort of floating. You know, I remember it, but I actually have never gone back and watched it.
Never got back and watched the footage of the show?
Of the show of myself winning. I've seen myself up to the point where Sandra Bullock says, William Goldenberg, and then I get to the stage and she hands me the Oscar, then I turn it off. Because I don't want to see myself speak, or hear myself speak. So I've never actually seen my speech on.
Did your wife kind of like push you forward?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, she was sitting right behind me because of the way they had us in this little box that was right next to the stage that they do now to save time for the walking up part. And So when I won, I turned around and hugged her. So when they showed me on television, the back of my head, and my wife, who's much better looking than me, so it was fine.
Has it changed your career at all?
I think it did. I think it helped. It helped rate wise, how much money I get, and it helped. I think with a little more recognition. I mean, it was a good year for me. I also got nominated for Zero Dark 30 the same year. So I had 2 nominations that year. So
wait a minute, you would have been a double loser.
Yes, I would have been.
I don't remember that. You were nominated for 2 in the same year.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
No, it was pretty exciting, and I thought maybe I would cancel my own vote out.
Oh, I would think you'd cancel yourself out.
I think I'm the only one who's editor anyway who's been nominated twice and won. I think it's happened a couple other times, but.
And then you were also once up against your mentor,
yes.
the great Michael Mann.
I know it was actually great.
What movie was that?
For Lincoln.
He was, and you were.
I was zero. It was.
That was the year.
Yeah, same year.
So, what was he like when you won?
He was. When I won, I didn't actually see him, but the nominees all spent a lot of time together because there's different dinners and parties and functions in the Academy lunch, so you do get to see each other quite a bit, and so it was really fun to hang out with him. And it was just like love between.
What did you learn from him?
Everything.
What does that mean, though?
Well, I learned.
What did you really learn?
I learned the biggest lesson I learned from him, and I've told a lot of people this, is I learned how to take criticism.
Ooh.
Which is
explain.
Well, what happened when I was on Alive? I was started out as the first assistant, and then somewhere in the middle, he was like, "It's time for you to move up," and he was going to leave that show to do Jurassic Park, and I was going to stay on.
Oh, he started Alive. You finished it?
Yeah, I think he got us up to the director's cut. I think it was around.
And Frank Marshall, of course, directed it.
And yeah, he was obviously on board with me moving up and Michael leaving because
that was a cabal. It was like Steven Spielberg and Frank and Kathy, and you sort of became part of that group of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously not the same as Michael.
But you know what I'm saying. That was a great beginning.
Oh, it was fantastic, and I've remained close to Kathy and Frank for all this time, and we've I see them, here and there.
So he taught you about criticism or taking criticism.
What he did was he gave me some scenes to cut on Alive, and I would cut them. And this time we were cutting on a Moviola and a Chem, not on a computer.
And explain what you had to do. You had to literally cut the.
It was cutting. You made a work picture off the negative, a work print that you could cut and splice, and then when they finish all that, you go back and cut the negative to match the work picture, and then that's what they make the release. And
it was unmarried, of course, which sound and picture were not even connected yet.
Right, yeah. So there would be separate mag.
Oh my God,
picture.
Isn't that amazing? I thought we could talk about this as being part of sort of that whole transition in movie magic.
It's funny how many people now, younger editors, have no idea what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
So. Anyway, so Michael would give me scenes to cut, and then I would show them to him, and he would take a grease pencil and make marks on them to make changes. That's how you did it then. You'd like cut here, do this, do that. So,
he'd actually write on the
you draw on the film with a grease pencil, and you could wipe it off with a little glove, a little editing glove made of cotton. So with certain scenes, he would give them to me. I'd cut him. I'd show it to him. He'd give me changes. I'd make the changes, show it to him again. He'd give me more changes, show it to him again, give me more changes. And then there were certain scenes like 5, 6, 7 times, and I was getting more changes. It was never seemed to be getting better, or from my point of view, I just kept getting notes. So I thought, well, I'm not doing it right. So. At one point, I went to him and I said, I don't think that I have an aptitude for this because I keep making the changes and then you keep giving me more changes. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to get it right. And he said, you don't understand. This has nothing to do with the scene's fine the way it is. There's nothing to do with that. This has to do with you being able to take criticism and not reacting to it.
Ooh.
Or reacting in a positive way.
That's a mentor.
Yeah.
That is a mentor.
And I tell people this, young editors, young filmmakers, young anything, writers, whatever,
He was one of the nicest men, and I remember very complimentary of me early on and always requested me to work on his pictures.
Well, we all do.
Well, thank you for that. But I want to also ask you about, your relationship with film. When you accept a film, when you say, I'm going to take this assignment on, how long are you going to be on a picture typically?
Probably 8 months to a year.
So we are talking a big commitment. What gets you to say yes?
Several things. I mean, the material ultimately is my guiding light. I mean, go with the best script, always the best material. But then I have relationships with directors, and luckily for me, the directors I have relationships do material that I'm attracted to. Like if Ben Affleck has a movie, I'll do it. I mean, there's no way that I would ever say no.
It does worth mentioning that you and I just shared an incredible experience of the movie Air Jordan, which Ben directed. It's his latest movie, which was one of the highest testing movies we've ever tested. And it was an extraordinary night, and that plane ride home on Ben's plane was something to remember. It was just pure joy, wasn't it?
It was one of those nights you keep thinking to yourself, you only get a few of these in your career, so remember every second of it, because, you do a lot of movies and some preview better than others, but when you have one like that, you just want...
It was just unanimous love.
Yeah, I mean, it was just...
But every group, every sort of demographic and psychographic group, because it transcended just age and gender. It was also ethnicity and race and socioeconomic. It just touched people in such a deep way. It is so good, and I'm thrilled to have worked on it. You have a relationship with a director from the beginning, or particularly speaking about a new director. I mean, how do you find your rhythm with a director?
I usually let them dictate the rhythm. I mean, I'm comfortable working any way. I've done this for so long that I can work any way they want, whether they want to just, never come to the cutting room and just watch stuff at home and give me changes and then see the whole movie, or sit there every day, all day. I'm comfortable with it all. So I sort of let them dictate the rhythm, and I just try to make the editing room a comfortable place. It's their place, it's their editing room. I just want to help them. I don't want to take over. I just want to help them achieve their vision. And I feel like I get along with people. I know it seems silly and simple to say, but I get along with people.
No, it doesn't feel silly at all. I have some real deep questions I've wanted to ask every editor I work with, but I'm particularly interested in your response. So often I'll see a picture when it's in the director's cut stage, minimum 10 weeks usually is the contract, right? And then we show it to at least 100 people, and there's feedback. At that point, what's typically your vision of the movie? How much you realize, or how much are you in service of the director's vision at that point? In other words, when do you begin to really assert yourself?
My asserting myself really consists of trying to guide the director, to try to get them to see the forest for the trees kind of thing. Like sometimes directors get so focused on the minutia, and they get so focused on not taking the criticism well, not wanting to admit something doesn't work.
Exactly. And so what do you do with that? I mean, do you wait until the screening happens and you say, let the audience speak for me so I don't have to be that guy?
Well, sometimes, yes. I mean, because sometimes I'm not, you're not 100% sure. And if the director gets a preview, so it's...
You want to kind of give her or him that time to have their vision shown.
And even getting to that point, I give them my opinion. I show them alternate versions of things. I try and, do whatever I think is right for the film. They can either accept it or not accept it. I mean, they can use my ideas or not use my ideas. And then if we get like a lot of feedback from the preview that tells us one thing or another, and a lot of times you have to, as you know, you have to figure out what they mean and not what they say, because a lot of times an audience may say, 100 people may say the same thing, but it's not. That may not be the problem.
Right.
I mean, it may be something that's 2 scenes earlier if they hate a certain scene. It's
right.
Not set up right. So my job is to interpret those notes, and sometimes directors can be really reluctant to start messing with their movie. They feel like there seems to be just this hard fix, like
digging in,
dig their heels in, and
yeah.
and it's sometimes conscious, sometimes they don't even know they're doing it.
Billy, what I sense often is, so you do a preview, the director hears what you've been saying, and then they say, okay, we're going to make changes. This time the studio might say, well, we want these changes, and the director's still sort of battling it out. The studio's sort of right. And so it's really hard. You've just lived in an editing room with someone for, 6-8 weeks or whatever it is, and we know how that relationship is. It's very, very close and tight, and I've seen the most intimate relationships in the whole filmmaking process occur in that editing room.
Yeah, very much so.
But you'll be the first person that's fired if not you personally, but the editor, because they're not getting it. When, of course, they do get it. And I've seen that time and time again, where I've defended the editor and I said, you know what, you need to let the editor do their job. So whatever you say might be a good idea for you to have a conversation with the director and let them back off right now and just see what the editor comes back with before you go to that next more.
I wish people would listen to you because I actually,
you know exactly what I'm saying.
Knock wood, and I've never been fired, but I live in fear of that every day. But
so talk about what I just said, because you know that is a really prevalent sort of dynamic, and I value editors probably more than any single creative influence on a movie. And I've seen horror stories and I've seen tremendous success stories based on great editors or not good editors, quite frankly.
The way I approach it is, I mean, first I work a long time to earn their trust. You know, I want them to trust me. So I try not to say things like, well, that'll never work, because if it does, if it turns out that their idea that you said will never work does work, then you've lost their trust. So I try and build that trust over the entire, you know, first cutting, the director's cut, so that they know that I'm not going to bullshit them, that I am hopefully smart about story, smart about storytelling. So, I mean, if they're reluctant, then we get past the preview and it didn't go as well as we wanted, or there are certain areas that clearly need to be worked on, and they're reluctant to do it. What I'll do is I'll go do a version of all those changes, because the wonderful thing about cutting on a computer, obviously, is that you can just do a million versions, and it doesn't, you know, in the old days in film, you can't do that. It's just is one work print. So I'll show them versions of things. I'll say, I know you don't want to make this change. I know you don't want, you know, you don't think they're right or whatever. Just take a look and see what you think about this. And they go like, I still don't want to do it. Then okay, and then I may come back to them in a couple of days and go, well, just take one more look. You know, so Michael Mann used to refer to it as the nudging style of changes. You know, instead of taking, I never like draw a line in the sand or yell at the director or get into a fight. You know,
you've never done that?
Not really. No. I mean, I've thrown myself on the sword a couple of times with Michael Mann. On Ali, I really have felt strongly about one scene he was taking out. Actually, two scenes he took out that I felt really strongly, certainly about one of them that he took out that I really wanted him to leave in, and certain things. And he thought about it and considered it and left the scene out. But I felt like it was a scene that illustrated why Muhammad Ali, what separates a great champion or a great superstar from just like a really good fighter. You know, what is that thing? What is the thing about wanting?
And what was his reason for wanting it out?
I just think he felt like it flowed better. You know, he never really even gave me a reason. I think he just felt it was in the dressing room right before the Foreman fight. There was a scene with him with Ali and Angelo Dundee, where Ali was talking about how scared he was to fight, and then he said that, you know, this guy might kill me, and he looked at Dundee and said, you know what, I can't wait. You know, and that to me as an athlete, because I played ice hockey my entire life, that's the difference. That's like Michael Jordan with 3 seconds on the clock to take the final shot. And that's, you know, he was terrified, Ali, but he couldn't wait to do it, because that's what separates, to me, like the superstar athletes from just the really good ones.
Oh,
you know?
That's really...
And I wanted them to leave that scene in the movie.
But it's a great justification, you know, it was where you came from. But you went on record and you were heard.
Yeah, I can't make them... Ultimately, it's their movie, and I say this to directors a lot. I mean, especially the ones who have the opportunity to, whether they have final cut or they have enough influence to release the movie they want to release.
You know, you talk about flow, okay? And I want to ask you, I have a theory, and it's a pretty general theory, but I'd like to get your sort of take on it. I always feel like the length of a movie is the product of, or the result of, the DNA of the script and the potentially directing style. Pace, however, I think is more about the editorial contribution. Length and pace are very different, and I've learned that throughout my career. Sometimes they are the same, or not at least the same, but I usually think length is a feeling. It feels too long. It feels too short. It's something it's not a full meal if it's too short, and if it's too long, which many movies are, especially in light of the streamers who have given a lot more rope to directors, and movies have become a lot more, I'll say, masturbatory or self-indulgent as a result. And the pace of movies, the cadence of a movie, to me, is very much dictated by you. Can you comment on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is. It's, when I say you or me, I say me, it's me and the director. I mean, the director's a co-editor on the movie. I mean, unless the editor just sort of takes a back seat, and which doesn't happen very often. But pace is the most important thing to me. It's obviously besides the actual story you're telling, but
pace is more almost engagement, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
because I always like to disabuse people saying, because audience members will often say it's too slow, it's too slow. But what they're really saying is
it lacks dynamic range.
Exactly, or the engine has now kind of lost its momentum. The push of that engine is just not there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have every great moment that you shot can't be in the movie. You have to pick your spots where you're going to hang on something, where you're going to like really let the audience, sit with a character, sit with something, have that length, and then where do you want to go faster? Where do you want to slow down? And finding that right kind of dynamic range is what makes a movie, pulls the audience along and also lets the audience know, hey, you're in good hands with us. We're gonna tell you when to go fast. We're gonna tell you when.
Well, that's why a great editor, and you are a great editor, are almost the director's conscience in a way. And so I think that if you're not coming at it from a more objective standpoint, I think you're doing a disservice to the director, because directors will put everything that they've shot on the screen typically, at least in their first cut. I mean, it's often the case. There are some directors who really do see the movie in their heads and shoot it that way, et cetera. But there are others who really just fall in love with their own shooting, and you've had both, I'm sure.
Yeah, so at its best, the director-editor relationship is one of those ones where you're both sort of checking each other. Where certainly Ben and I, because we've known each other for 15 years, and this is our fourth movie, and we've also recut a couple of films together, and so we've worked a lot together, and I think. And I was commenting to him a couple of weeks ago on Gone Baby Gone, he used to call me the length police because I was always like, no, it's too long here, it's too this. I was always concentrating on, amongst all the other things, to make sure the movie wasn't too long, and I felt it was, and I kept pushing him to make the movie shorter, which we got to a point where I think we were both happy. And then when we did Argo, he was the one who was like, it's got to be shorter, And
So do you read the script typically before they shoot a frame of film?
Oh, sure, like at least 3-4 times.
Okay, so I don't know when you're not always hired in the process that way, because there's movies you've taken over, et cetera.
Yeah, but mostly I don't actually like taking over movies.
Will you sometimes say this scene and this scene really need to be more visual as opposed to there's too many words here?
I don't. Sometimes, generally, I won't say that. I'm going to just take the words out. If I think. I do, but I do read the scripts and always comment on them from an editorial point of view.
Same with me. I think you and I probably think very similarly, because when I'm asked to read a script beforehand, I'll often say the audience is going to reject that. They're going to.
Well, you probably are. You've been doing it for such a long time.
Yeah.
You can probably tell what the score is before the.
I sometimes can, but some of it is really based on just extraordinary execution. That in the case of, I remember Fight Club, I remember reading that script and just not getting the script and seeing the movie and thought it was sort of genius. It was something I said, that's why Fincher is such
there's special filmmakers like that.
Extraordinary, execution-driven filmmaker.
It's going to be more than the word on the page.
Exactly. But do you sometimes find yourself giving notes beforehand saying that's not going to cut well, or that's not going to play well,
or like there's you need to transition here, or the scene should end here and start here, because generally it's...
But you'll do that in the editing room, though.
Yeah, and sometimes like I have a really great relationship with Paul Greengrass, who I've done 2 films with.
Another super talented,
unbelievable
director.
Yeah, I mean, then the sweetest guy, smartest. I mean, I'm very lucky.
I don't know Paul, but I certainly respect him as a filmmaker.
Wonderful guy. You'd love him. With him, I'm involved from the beginning of the writing process all the way from like as soon as he does an outline, he shares it with me and we talk about that. And then he's got 40 pages. I read that and give him notes. Then, all through the process there. Then I go to England because that's where he lives. For a couple of weeks somewhere in the pre-production process to sit with him and go through the script like page by page by page.
Wow.
And give him all my notes. And he'll address some he doesn't agree, won't do them. So we do that for 2 weeks. And then Paul generally does like a light rewrite the night before he shoots every scene. And I think it's a perfectionism thing. Also, I think he feels it makes the actors a little more on edge, a little more lively, that they don't get settled with the material. He'll give me those pages. I'll give him notes the night of, the morning of, he's going to shoot it. A lot of times he'll say, I say, you can lose this pair of lines.
Right, yeah, sure.
I know, or you can just start here. And he goes, I absolutely do that in the cutting room. I'd rather shoot it and have it. And sometimes I think he overshoots scenes because, shoot more dialogue than he might need. Because I think, especially on shorter scenes, I think it lets the actors get into a flow better.
Billy, I've made about 12 movies in my life, television movies. And I said, well, we need to do this or this from, behind the scenes. And they said, don't edit the movie in advance. And I'm like, what? I don't know any other way to do it.
Don't edit in the camera, you mean?
Correct. Yeah. What do you think about that? That's what I'm saying. Sorry, don't edit the movie in the camera.
Well, it depends on the director.
But what do you think about that? I was like, why not? Because I worked with Dan Petrie, Sr.
Oh, yeah.
I produced the last movie that he directed called Wild Iris, which we were nominated for 3 Emmys and we won one. And Dan basically saw that movie in his head and was very economical with the way he shot. There was not a lot of footage, extra footage, I mean.
Right.
I could see he was in and out on a shot. I know Clint Eastwood directs this way as well. What's your feeling about that?
I feel like if a director has control of the medium and he's in control of the storytelling, he should absolutely do that.
What does editing inside the camera actually mean, though?
Well, it means you're going to have a 5-page dialogue scene, but you're going to be in the master for the first 2 pages of that dialogue scene. So you shoot the master and don't shoot any coverage for the first 2 minutes, and then only start shooting the coverage.
And then you go back and say, people are not interested. I don't have coverage. I see.
Hitchcock edited in the camera all the time. It seemed to work out, So,
yeah, I think it worked out pretty well for him.
But other, certain directors now, it's different now too. There's much more emphasis on a lot of coverage and a lot of cutting. And you don't really see movies like, I guess maybe Inarritu might cut in the camera, although I think he shoots a ton of film. So I don't really know.
How does a little Billy who's playing ice hockey say one day, I want to be an editor?
I didn't know what to do with my life. I love the movies.
What was your first movie?
Well, the first movie I remember loving is Cat Ballou.
Oh, I wonder.
Not because of Jane Fonda, although I did love her. My family used to have a house in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and all the members of my family in one house, like 10, 12 bedrooms. Every cousin got a different bedroom.
A beach house.
Yeah. Like a half a block from the beach in Ventnor, actually, outside of Atlantic City. And there was a movie theater.
I'm from Jersey, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There was a movie theater that all the adults would send the kids. Every time it rained, we couldn't go to the beach. They sent us to the movies. So I would see, one summer I saw Cat Ballou probably 7 times because it would play the whole summer. So I go, okay, there you go again. So
how old were you?
Oh, I don't remember.
Well, it had an influence on you.
Yeah,
that's why
clearly.
I'm asking.
No, I loved it because I just thought it was so clever and so it was funny. And it had
I
heart
bet you're going to tell me you notice things each time a little bit differently.
Oh, of course.
That's the reason you.
And I just love the way. Have you ever seen the movie?
Do you know? I don't think I've ever seen it.
Well,
I'm going to be honest.
The best part is.
But I remember the one sheet.
Stubby K
and Jane is
gorgeous. Yeah, Lee Marvin won Best Actor for that.
Did he really?
Yeah, he played 2 roles. He played a gunfighter named
Best Supporting Actor.
Best
right?
Actor.
He did. Wow.
He played Kid Shalene and his evil brother. They were both gunfighters. Yeah.
So anyway, so you went back 7 times.
Yeah. So anyway, there's the best part of the movie is Stubby K and Nat King Cole do a lot of the music, and Nat King Cole's on the piano, Stubby K's on the banjo. So you have this wild chase, horse chase through the desert in the West. Camera swish pans over, and Stubby K's and Nat King Cole are in the desert playing and singing along. And then it swish pans back to the horses. So it was like that kind of craziness. I mean, I just thought it was so clever and so funny, and I don't know, it just really stuck with me. Maybe because I saw it 7 or 8 times.
Who were some of your early kind of, other than Michael being an actual mentor? Who influenced you?
Well, because I came to it late, I mean, I think the influences I had were, I mean, there was a professor at film school that influenced me a lot.
So you went to film school?
Yeah, I did. I went to film school at Temple University.
Oh, in Philly, yeah. So you go to Temple and you studied to be a...
Well, I studied to be an editor, really.
You did?
Yeah.
What made you go into school thinking I want to be an editor?
No, actually, I went to school to want to be a doctor because that's what my father wanted me to be.
Then you didn't go to Hahnemann?
No, a friend of mine did. But
so my husband went there for a year, and then he dropped out. Yeah.
So did my friend. I was in pre-med. I didn't know and then I hated it and didn't know what to do. And they happened to have a really world-class film school there. And my stepmother worked in the film business. She was in publicity for 20th Century Fox. And she said, well, go to film school. I'll help you get a job. And da-da-da-da. So I was like, well, okay. I like the movies. And then I went to film school in my second year. And I just
you declared editing.
Yeah, I not at first, but I just loved it. I just loved everything about it. And then I started just getting more and more into it.
Did you make movies as a kid? Or?
Yeah, I did. Not very good ones.
No, but like Steven, wait till you see Fabelmans.
I hear it's fantastic.
It's so good.
I didn't make movies like that. I made it,
Yeah, but he started just with this
but he started
vision
when he was
and
8.
Oh, exactly.
I didn't do any of that. No, I was too busy trying to be an athlete.
What was your student film?
Oh.
The one your thesis, if you will.
It was about so embarrassing. It was about just this girl who was trying to get make it. She was trying to be like a carpenter furniture maker in a man's world, and the difficulties with that. Did
you get seen by?
I eventually took a class where I had a teacher named Ed Cornell, who was actually a Cal Arts teacher, was teaching at Temple that semester, and he encouraged me to be. He saw the work I did as an editor and encouraged me. He said, "You're good as you have a knack for it." No one had ever said anything like that to me before, and because no one in my family does anything creative. Though my family's in the deli business.
Really?
Yeah. My father had.
Where in Jersey or
in Philly?
Ah.
Yeah, in Society Hill in Philadelphia.
Did they own a deli?
Yeah. My father did. Yeah, my parents were divorced. So.
Did you used to work in it?
Oh yeah. I can slice locks with the best of them. I was a short order cook and a deli man.
And a schmear.
Yes, I did a lot of schmearing.
I did a lot of schmearing.
So I came to LA with the idea of being an editor, and I was lucky enough. Worked hard enough, smart enough, whatever it was, to fall into the right group of people, and eventually I got sort of.
How did you don't gloss over that? How did you find the right group of people?
Well, how did I get my first? I got a job as a gopher, like a PA kind of thing, through a roommate of mine. His father worked at a company called Hill Mandelker Films. They used to do a show called Tucker's Witch with Tim Matheson and Catherine Hicks.
So you got a job as a runner?
I was below the PAs. And then they asked me if I wanted to be a PA on set for a television movie they were doing with Diane Cannon, Hart Bachner, and Barry Newman. And then, so they said, "Do you want to be an on-set PA?" And I said, "Is there any way I could be an apprentice editor?" And
because you remembered liking it?
Because I loved it and I knew I wanted to be an
school.
editor. So I said, is there any way I could be an apprentice editor? And they shockingly said yes.
And it's all beshert.
Yeah.
All meant to be.
And I ended up working for an editor named John Wright, who cut Speed. He cuts first Speed movie. And
I worked with him on that with Jan de Bont.
Yeah, Hunt for Red October. He cut. And since this was a television movie called High School USA, and but John had cut a lot of features, and he came and did this television movie as a favor to the producers. So when he went back to the features, they took me onto a feature with them.
And then how did you get to Arachnophobia?
I ended up working on a movie called Punchline.
Oh, with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, and Bruce Green was the editor.
Bruce.
Field. Yeah. And Bruce is a really good friend.
He was married to Bonnie, right? Greenberg?
He's now married to Janet.
Right, I knew that. But I just saw Bonnie at Break Fast.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
They're still friends, I believe.
Yeah, they have a daughter together.
Yeah, right. It's so funny. Such an incestuous business, right? When we think about this.
Well, Bruce had been Michael Kahn's assistant for years and years. So Michael was looking for a new first assistant, and Bruce said, "This guy would be great." And I said no. I was so nervous about working for Michael. I was like, I don't, because he had a rough reputation, and I was nervous about doing that. And then, I went and cut a movie for a friend of mine who was directing his first film, and it was a disaster. Not because of my work, although I don't know how good my work was, but because the movie was not well written or directed or acted for that matter. So then I realized I can go the independent route. I can hope that I should cut some small movie that somebody sees, like Quentin Tarantino and Sally Menke hooked up at the Sundance Film Festival.
Yes.
She cut a thing for him, and that's to me, I thought that seems like a 1 in a million shot. So the other way was to go back and work for somebody like Michael and get somebody to mentor me and to
that was really smart.
Me. And I saw what
prescient.
I saw what it did for Bruce. Bruce hung in there as an assistant for years longer than some of his counterparts, and he was able to enter the feature world at a much higher level. So I thought that makes more sense to me. Then Michael asked me again to work for him as his first assistant. So after I cut that movie, I went and was Michael's first assistant on Always, the Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter remake of
Steven, though, right?
Yeah, Steven Spielberg. Yeah. So
what was it like working with him?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I started on that movie in the middle. The night of the first preview was one of my first days on the movie.
Oh wow!
In fact, my first day on the movie was on the scoring stage, and it happened to be my birthday. I was at the Sony scoring stage, and they had to record "Happy Birthday" for the movie.
I was going to say what,
and I was my first day. And
what
I'm sitting
a birthday
there,
present!
And John Williams was playing "Happy Birthday" with a 100-piece orchestra, and no one knew it was my birthday because I didn't want to tell anybody.
Oh, and you thought it was a tribute to you?
No, I knew it wasn't.
No, I mean, but you believe that in
my mind,
it was your own mind.
It was serendipitous.
That's genius.
Anyway,
that's a great story.
Yeah,
really.
no, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. It was incredible.
Do you remember a particular screening that, because of the audience response, really opened up something, or they gave you that nugget that said, I think we solved this particular problem. I think, and it was a big one. Mm-hmm. It's not a little nitpicky thing.
Oh, Argo, actually. I mean, everybody says, oh, did you know Argo was going to be a Best Picture? I was like, no, not even close. I mean, I was hoping, I kept thinking I was going to get fired, because I always think I'm going to get fired. But we had several.
Some of the greats say that to me. I have to tell you, I've heard that comment a lot. No one wants to fire you.
Well, I guess I feel like I've crossed some sort of threshold where maybe I'm less likely to get fired. So anyway, we kept having friends and family screenings where the movie, you get 20, 25 people, you can get a sense of what's working and what's not. So we would have these screenings, and it was just like, it was really good, but we just knew something wasn't clicking. And there used to be a lot more. There were several other sequences in that movie with Ben's character, Tony Mendez, and his wife, mostly phone calls. In fact, all phone calls. So the marriage part of it, and his marriage falling apart, was a much bigger part of the story that ended up being in the movie. So we were about to have, instead of having 20, we were going to have a screening with 60 or 70 people over at J.J. Abrams' facility where he has a screening room. And a couple days before, Ben got a suggestion from Bradley Cooper, who saw the movie and said, I don't think you need any of that stuff with the wife. And we were like, that's crazy. We can't. I mean, we worked so hard on these scenes, and we thought it was integral to the movie. And Ben said, what do you think? And I said, I think it's worth a try. I mean, I think it's worth,
considering. And
we had the screening. Maybe we'll test it in front of these people. So we said, okay, let's do it. So it came out so easily that it seemed like, this makes maybe
because you
sense.
Worked so hard on the
scene,
individual
there was a lot of improv with Ben and Taylor Schilling, who played his wife. Tons of improv that was really good, and it was really real. And
there's a great example of what we talked about earlier in the program today, which is not drinking the Kool-Aid. In other words, just not falling in love with your own scene if it doesn't serve the overall movie.
Well, sometimes that's hard to see that, and hopefully that's what I mean by hopefully if it's not. It's the director sees it. If the director doesn't see it, the editor will.
So had the audience
so anyway, so
that?
we did it, and like I said, I think I took all the scenes out and had to rejigger a couple of things. It took it to an hour and a half, and it took 8 minutes, 10 minutes out of the movie, just boom, like that. And then we screened it for, I think it was 60, like I said, 60, 70 people, and we're running, and it's playing great. But we were worried what happens at the end when Ben shows up at his house and you see the wife for the first time. And we were so that scene came up. It's the end of the movie, and Ben and I are looking at each other like, uh-oh, is this going to work? It was like you could feel the nervousness from both of us. And then lights came up and we had a really loud round of applause, and all the cards, they filled out cards, and all the cards were amazing, and we were like, okay, I think we just clicked.
Oh, wow.
And then we previewed it. Were you, I can't remember, you must have been.
I wasn't there for that. Okay. No, I wasn't there for that.
That was my second highest preview.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, it's a glorious movie. Well, we could stay here and speak forever. I have to say that what you do in your profession is, to me, of the highest level, and again, one of the most important, if not the most important, certainly in the finishing of a movie. And thank you for sharing your stories here today. And I hope we get to do this again. You're the first editor I ever had. And I hope that I can do more of these interviews with people in your craft.
I'm sure they'd be happy to speak to you. No, I mean, I feel like I think to myself all the time that I was sort of born under a lucky star, at least career-wise, probably personally too, I guess. But I mean, the directors I've gotten to work for, the people I've gotten to meet, and the success I've had is like, it's kind of astonishing to me.
Oh, Billy.
I feel like as somebody's sort of watching over me, really. I mean, it's not like I'm a super religious
And
guy.
Where's your Oscar?
In my family room.
And you look at it and go by and go, I want to.
Yeah, it really is. It really is nice to see.
To bring this full circle now.
Yeah, I mean, to think I have one, and I never thought in my wildest imagination that would happen to me, and it was quite the year. It was very exciting. I've worked on those two movies, and I've worked with Kathryn Bigelow on that film, and then to work with Ben in the same year. It was like, I mean, how much luckier could you get?
And the winner is Billy Goldenberg. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Check out Billy's film released earlier this year, The Outfit, available on Prime Video. Also check out two of his upcoming films, Transformers, Rise of the Beasts, and Air Jordan, directed by Ben Affleck and starring Matt Damon. Next time on Don't Kill the Messenger, I'll welcome the talented and prolific director, writer, producer, and storyteller, George Tillman Jr. Until then, I'm Kevin Getz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.